This is how Jin Ping Mei reads Chapter 10 in the embroidered version of the portrait. The righteous man is in charge of Mengzhu Road, and his wife and concubines enjoy the Furong Pavilion. 1. Wu Song. Let's go quickly. In the second half of the last episode, Wu Song came back from a business trip. Just like in Water Margin, he discovered the truth about the tragic death of Wu Die. The difference was that there was no evidence for Heju. Similarly, he couldn't go through the official procedures and had to take revenge on his own. The difference was that it was revenge that did not kill Simon King, but killed Li Weiquan. At this point, the embroidery book made an excellent introduction. There are countless people talking on the street, but they don't know that Simon King doesn't deserve to die. Instead, they say that the official Simon King was beaten to death by Wu Song. This it not only makes the story come alive, but also gives Water Margin enough face. The Chihua version has not yet been advanced to this point. It just says, if you talk too much about Simon King, you shouldn't die. I don't know where he's going, but I use this person command top the cylinder. Wu Song failed to take revenge and ended up hurting others. Jin Ping Mei handed him over to an extremely honest official, Chen Wenjiao. Regarding the two cases of the Wu brothers, the theoretical perfect outcome should be thoroughly investigate the Wu Die murder case, then punish Simon King and others, then seek justice for Li Weiquan and punish Wu Song. This is a standard complaint from Yeezy. However, Chen Wenjiao was in such a turbid world that he was unable to carry out his integrity. Due to the power of his network of relationships and favors, he had to give up the pursuit of the Wuhan University murder case. Similarly, out of his integrity, and did not want to punish Wu Song too much, so in the end he had to waste another life of Li Weiquan. This is a kind of forced by reality, but it is also a kind of rational kindness. In the turbid officialdom, such utopian sentiments as uprightness and righteousness simply do not work. Only by being flexible and diplomatic can we protect ourselves and strive to pursue the ideal of benefiting the world. Thanks to this force, Jin Ping Mei separated from Water Margin without any hindrance, and the trustworthy horse left the reins. This also made Wu Song, who finally returned, no longer look to the government but directly resorted to force for revenge. There are still many officials like Chen Wenjiao and Jin Ping Mei. In this turbid world, evil and justice can no longer be distinguished at all. Money and favors can serve evil or justice. All things and cases are far from simple moral judgments and value judgments that can give the final results and answers. Just like our most realistic life, you will never be able to solve it. We don't know what will happen in this world, and what's even more frightening is that these things often happen in a way that is out of common sense but natural. The story that overlaps with Water Margin is over. Without being in a hurry to hurry up, let's ask one last question. Water Margin has so many stories. Why is the author only interested in this love murder story? Is it because the story about their affair and sex in Water Margin is not strong enough and interesting enough? Does the author want to rewrite it? Maybe, maybe not. But at least one thing cannot be ignored. That is, in Water Margin, Wu Jie was poisoned. Simon King, Pan Jinlian, and Wang Po were all killed immediately. Only Wu Song survived, but he became a prisoner from then on. Becoming a tutu and going up Liangshan have lost the meaning of human in a conventional society. No matter how interesting the previous affair and sex were, it has become pale and sad in the face of such an ending of death and alienation. Perhaps, the author of Jin Ping Mei wanted to use this familiar story in Water Margin to draw people's attention to death and alienation. He made the protagonists survive and reinterpreted a story that was more in line with secular common sense. Perhaps in this sense, Jin Ping Mei is naturally different from Water Margin and Dream of Red Mansions. It is not like a legend or a fairy tale. Compared with Water Margin, it is more like it is written for readers and knowledgeable people. Compared with Dream of Red Mansions, it is more like it is written for adults and people with wisdom. If A Dream of Red Mansions mourns the loss of youth, and if Water Margin praises passion and strength, then Jin Ping Mei is more like a profound enlightenment after vicissitudes of life. The final flavor of a life of ups and downs, intertwined with the pursuit of desires in life. and a requiem of 3 sighs for the fear of life and death. 2. Liu Niang. Come on. Wu Song was temporarily exiled from Jin Ping Mei, and Simon King and Pan Jinlian lived a happy life from then on. Last time we looked at version 2.0 of the competition for favors. The familiar Simon family of 1 wife and 5 concubines is now the last piece of the puzzle, left by Li Pinger. When will she appear? Of course, she has already appeared in the first chapter of the embroidery book. And she has been laying the groundwork carefully along the way. There is a line before the 8th chapter. The wind in the jade building urges the flowers, and it is difficult for people upstairs to sleep. We know that in the 7th chapter, Meng Yulu married into Simon's family. And in the 8th chapter, Pan Jinlian was miserable, and she was sad only because Fang from the Jade Tower. In the next chapter, in the 9th chapter, Pan Jinlian finally married into Simon's family. In the previous chapter, the line immediately appeared, the flower branches were broken, and the vase followed. Meng Yulu's Fang from the Jade Tower urged the lotus to come, and it was very easy to see the lotus coming. It will soon be Aquarius follows. This time, Wu Song went to the army, and Simon King happily held a banquet in the garden. For the first time, we saw the festive scene of Simon's wives and concubines. Incense is burned on the tripod, and flowers are placed in golden vases. Suddenly, welcome spring, embroidered spring, spring plum blossoms, autumn chrysanthemums, hundreds of flowers are in full bloom. The flowers are in full bloom, and the flower vase is ready to come out. At the wedding banquet in the garden, Li Pinger sent snacks and flowers on behalf of the flower family next door. It was really not a big deal to exchange courtesy between neighbors. After all, Hua Zixu and Simon King were sworn brothers. However, the next dialogue between Simon King and his wife is very interesting. Simon King, brother Hua, has been married to this lady for less than 2 years. He said that she has a good personality. Wu Yunyang, I was born with a short stature, a lumpy skin, and thin eyebrows. I am fair and have a gentle temperament. I am still young, no older than 24 or 5. Simon King. He was originally the concubine of Liang Zhongshu of Daming Palace. He married late and came from a poor family. He brought a penny of good money with him. What Simon King said about goodness was paraphrased by Hua Zixu, but it was still fresh in his memory. What Wu Yunyang said about beauty is what he saw with his own eyes. But it was something Simon King wanted to say, but did not dare to say. And what Simon King said about wealth, it seems to be a well-known secret again. In 3 simple sentences, an almost perfect woman suddenly appeared in front of him. Everyone had different thoughts. Wu Yunyang probably just wanted to make friends with this wealthy and generous neighbor, while Simon King probably drooled over her beauty and wealth. What's annoying is Pan Jinlian and Meng Yulu who are sitting next to them. Have they heard this? Do they know that an opponent much stronger than them is about to appear? 3. Chun Mai, where are you going? Chun Mai is the girl that Mrs. Zhu bought for Simon King with 16 taels of silver. After Simon King bought Chun Mai, he put it in Wu Yunyang's room. This time, he made personnel adjustments and moved her into Pan Jinlian's room. He bought another Xiaoyu for Wu Yunyang and another Qiuju for Pan Jinlian. Of course, the Simon family cannot compare with the Jia family in A Dream of Red Mansions. Jia Mu and Mrs. Wang each have 8 maids. Each Simon family has a maximum of 2. Why is this? Why not just buy Pan Jinlian 2 girls and be done with it? The answer is 16 taels. We said earlier that 16 taels are equivalent to 3 times the market price, which means that the spring plums are extremely beautiful. We can also see the possible hidden connotations of 16 taels from the following article. One is that Han Daoguo bought back 16 taels. One maid, Cheng Xiang, took it, and the other was Pan Jinlian, a maid, who deceived Wu Yunyang into saying that 16 taels would buy back a sister who can play and sing. 16 taels may not only represent good looks, but also represent the intention of preparing a concubine. Simon King who bought such a beauty at such a high price, and would never use it to serve tea and water. So the following dialogue came about. Simon Singh. There are 2 good girls in the second brother Hua's room next door. One of them is also Chun Mei's age, and it was also adopted by the second brother Hua. but she is a good-looking girl. Who knows that this second brother Hua has a good look, even though he is young. He is full of people in the room. Pan Jinlian, you weird connoisseur, I can't scold you. You want to accept this girl in your heart. Just accept her. She is not my girl. In this case, I will sit back tomorrow to make some room. You can call him in your room and let him do as he pleases. Obviously, Pan Jinlian's explanation helps us understand Simon King. He has indeed been planning for a long time. His two words he fully express his intention. He wants to acquire Chen Mai. As mentioned before, adoption is the master's unconditional sexual possession of the maid. This is how Pan Jinlian was possessed. However, she was kicked out by the master's mother-in-law and married to Wu Daling. Even if Li Ping'er is promoted to a concubine as mentioned in this chapter's introduction to her life experience, there is still the threat of being beaten to death and buried in the back garden. Therefore, being employed is often a bad thing or even fatal for a maid. Because most hostesses cannot stand other women, especially maids and concubines, benefiting from their husbands. Of course Simon King knew this. At least he knew that the upright Wu Yunyang could not openly tolerate him, using Chen Mai under his nose. Therefore, Simon King made personnel adjustments with good intentions. The question now is, why did he know that Pan Jinlian would agree to him using Chen Mai and agree to let him use Chen Mai in her bed? Let's look at the progression of the story first. Simon King heard this and said happily, "My son, you know how to understand things like this. How can you teach me not to love you?" The two of them talked very much in love, and they felt that they were even more beautiful and in love. What is interest solving? One is Pan Jinlian's playing the flute that breaks through the standards of virtue, and the other is her exquisite and clear woman's heart. Compare this to what Simon King, who had just returned from being a prostitute in Chapter 8, said to Pan Jinlian's gift. "How did I know you were so smart?" Wisdom and knowledge are basically synonymous. Perhaps, Simon King has figured out Pan Jinlian's mentality. She has nothing left, and it is impossible to fall out with Simon King for a woman. Even if she is unhappy, she is just pretending to be unhappy, or even pretending to be happy. On the other hand, Simon King understood that Pan Jinlian loved him, and the possessiveness that this love transformed into Pan Jinlian would make her desperate. These will be profoundly proved later. As for Pan Jinlian, of course she has her own little calculation. She knows that it is impossible to prevent Simon King from liking other women. In this case, why can't she take advantage of this in turn? As for Chen Mai, instead of preventing conflicts from rising, it is better to take the initiative and give it to her in order to gain Simon King's favor, and perhaps Chen Mei's happiness. Yes, in this Simon family where wives and concubines look down on others, it is really important for a penniless concubine like her to find an ally. It can be said that Pan Jinlian took the first step in the struggle for favor with Chen Mai. This is the law of struggle and the helpless law of survival in the plum in the golden vase.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.